So it's understanding how words change over time. Maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, gender was only a term used for linguistics. In other words, now I'm not too sure about the languages in India. What are some of the Urdu or Punjab? Right? All the other? I mean, there's lots of languages. I know Chinese. There's no gender in our language. In English, we don't really have gender. I'm just talking about the language. Now, German, French, Latin, Greek, those Germanic or those, more European languages, French, I don't know if I said that or not, but those do have a masculine gender and a feminine gender and also a neuter gender. That's just the way that, so their words, I'm trying to think of an example, like maybe in Spanish, but the endings often, and so pronouns need to then match the gender of the noun. Doesn't mean like a ship could be maybe feminine gender in French. That doesn't make the ship actually a woman, but it's just the way that the words work. So the term gender was basically used in the realm of linguistics. Sometimes when it was used elsewhere to refer to people, it was synonymous with sex. So when we talk about sex, male and female, we thought about the same thing. Sex meaning a physical characteristic you can tell by objectively by whether doing a blood test, DNA test, or looking at one's physical organs. Of course, there's the issue of intersex, but that's an anomaly. An anomaly in medicine never negates the binary systems, never. Even though today people think that, but these are not medical doctors who are saying that for sure. Realize that people who says that there's many sexes, it's not medical doctors who are saying that. It's all, activists. But anyway, so now gender has kind of took on this new term that's no longer synonymous with sex, biological sex or physical sex. Gender now has become not an objective reality like sex, but a subjective reality, which is what I think, what I feel. So whereas sex is biological, gender now is psychological. Sex is objective, gender is now subjective, meaning what I feel, what I think. That by definition is subjective. So as you say, Rajat, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, which is the chapter on the Imago Dei, we have, it's a foundational verse from which, the Bible builds. Of course, then we have Genesis 3, the fall. So we have the wonderful aspect of humanity, the pinnacle of God's creation, who's created in God's image. Nothing else is in God's image. No angels, no animals, nothing is created in God's image except for humanity, except for man. And then, there's a lot of questions about what exactly is the image of God. And there's a lot of discussion here. But the one thing that we can definitely say that is very closely linked and correlated with the Imago Dei is male and female, nothing else. I mean, it's a very simple passage. Genesis 1, verse 20. I mean, it's actually poetry. That's why when you read it in your Bibles or see in your Bibles, you see it bracketed off as poetry. And it talks about, in the beginning, it says, so God created man in his own image. That's line 1 of the we call that like I'm losing it's a line in poetry. They call it a colon. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. So it's the reality of sex, male and female, is very closely linked with the Imago Dei. So therefore, sex is not just biological. It's not a psychological reality, but it's not just biological. Christians, sometimes we overemphasize the physical aspect. It is, But from this passage, we actually find that male and female is a spiritual reality. Imago Dei is not just a physical reality, it's holistic, it's everything. It's also spiritual, but it's not only spiritual, it's everything. All that we are, we're not just separated beings, we're a physical being and a spiritual being, we're one. I mean, yes, we have those aspects, but we are all one. So therefore, male and female is definitely linked to that. And today what we find is that there's just a blurring of the lines. Satan, being the prince of lies, what he does best is blur the lines. And if you have my book, I don't have my book next to me, but the cover is black and white, Holy Sexuality and the Gospel. And it might look kind of very simple, but I was very intentional about my book cover because we're living in a world of infinite shades of gray. I'm sure, Rajat, you heard of the secular book called 50 Shades of Gray. And, it's unfortunately had been super popular in the United States. And that's so much representative of what we're living today. Everything's gray. Nothing, we just don't know. And that's what we hear today. And as apologists, it's frustrating because we know. Truth is not gray. Truth is black and white, particularly when it comes to biblical sexuality, it's black and white. Same thing with gender. Gender is not just gray. Gender is black and white. There's male and female, and certainly there are anomalies like intersex, but in those cases it's very small. But anomalies in medicine never negate binary systems.